Despite until recently having little presence in the military and almost completely absent from non-support duties, women had consistently played a disproportionate role in popular revolutions and civil disobedience. There are many examples, like the woman-breed protesters in the Russian Revolution, anti-Nazi resistance, women who fed and sheltered the Yukon, and currently the woman spearheading protest against the ruling mullah class in Iran. But when men fit in this, men seem to have a somewhat opposite role, often filling sorrel positions for the rulers and poor. It seems true to the story. The dream of many men was to carry a weapon and stand guard. Society is inundated with rigid hierarchies, which hold immense power, yet can also be toppled at any moment by the people at the bottom. To abolish it, arise close to the top, seeking to replace them a similar position. Thus, the ruling elite relies on middle people who are higher on the hierarchy than those on the bottom and feel they have something to lose if the system were to go down. For an obedient middle person, after experiencing the torment of being applauded by those on the top, getting to step on those underneath them on the social ladder is oftentimes an appealing reward. Really is. In general, trying to do good and make life better, that things more efficiently and sustainably, it is met with, yet people do in fact have a way to escape this position. And it is the same thing the rulers did to take and hold on to their power. Rights which were owned and must be taken back through force, unnecessary and unwanted societal prohibitions like unequal class relations or social standing proscribed based on birth circumstances must be dissolved. It is for this reason that the people in power do everything they possibly can to keep the area under them weak and passive and above all afraid, but we can only ascribe a blame to those close to the top. They don't control society all on their own. They are actually in fact quite lazy and really on their subordinates to keep the Reagans down so they don't act up. The original idea of distinct races had its roots in religious law regarding slavery. Christians were not allowed to enslave other Christians and Muslims were not allowed to enslave Muslims in their theology. In medieval times, slavery was still going in most places, but the demand was nothing like it was after the colonization of the Americas. Turks and other Muslims imported slaves from the port of Kaffa, kidnapped from the enslaved peoples in Russia, Ukraine. Muslims also explored the east of Africa and traded slaves in places such as Zanzibar. They called Africans in. The blacks, and although some were Islamists, most were still pagan. In the days of Muslims and Christians, that made this development was obviously influenced by the prohibition of enslaving fellow religious believers, which shifted to a proscriptory encouragement of enslaving Africans and indigenous Americans and seeing them as inherently inferior to their cultural background. Later, when these people started simply converting to the empire's religion en masse, this shifted to the idea that they were simply inherently less civilized, intelligent, or moral due to some biological or theological mechanism, and not deserving to be considered full humans, even if they conquered it at the same time, while putting down the natives and blacks, this alienated whites to being the prestige ethnicity which Union was lucky to. Later on, larger white settlements in the Americas became more of a thing when the English and French came north. In these places, they usually shut out the Indians and became the sole or dominant ethnicity in the subtropical American South, tropical Caribbean and Latin America. Highly profitable cash crops which could be sold to Europe were planted on these plantations. The exploitation was ripe and the treatment cruel, and white overseers watched over countless slaves whose entire lives were to produce profit as if they were action. Centuries of this system naturally created its own mythology to defend and justify. There is an inherent desire, much stronger in certain types of people, to feel stronger and superior to others, not strong on their own as an allowable individual, but in comparison to a lesser group. This is one of the reasons why race pandering to whites has historically been so easy. When you tell somebody only everything they want to hear, justifying or explaining away the things that bother them, they are primed to be manipulated and made useful by weaponizing their self-aggrandizement. A cursory look at mainstream right-wing propaganda shows you that this instinct is what makes their bones applauding and encouraging some people, especially some particular sorts of less intelligent men. And while this sort of pandering to the lowest common denominator may make them feel good, white supremacist racism is a double-edged sword, and for them, they are held towards people of color can be just as easily directed at poor whites, whites who marry or lie amongst non-whites, or who side against white supremacy politically for the out-of-touch corporatocrats who dominate the popular narrative. A white worker whose side is against the boss and with the rabble belongs just as dead in a ditch as the lesser fault they betrayed their race to fight alongside. Ironically, those very same neoliberal corporatocrats chip away at their own system of hierarchy by reducing wages